Thank you, Amaranta. Merci, Amaranta, pour ces règles.
Thank you, Amaranta, for these organization rules for this webinar. Hello to all of you. My name is Stephanie Late. I'm the coordinator of this specialized course entitled Using Assessment Data, Learning Assessment Data to Monitor the Progress towards SDG 4, organized by the IIEP, UNESCO's IIEP Institute, or the Institute for Planning for Education. Management and Education Planning. I'm very happy to welcome you to this webinar organized in the frame of this specialized course. And this course is ongoing, it goes until the end of May. And I take this opportunity to welcome the 44 participants we have this year. Each year, this is a course which is given every year. The aim is to build up the competences of people and to help achieve SDG 4 by using assessment data regarding learning coming from different sources. And this course is actually given online. It's an interactive course. It takes 9 weeks. We have reached half of this course. It will go until the end of May. It is both in French and in English. And we deal with 4 major topics. The first one being what are the different steps of the research cycle on education policies and how does the quality concept for education, how it is integrated in this planning cycle. And we also look at the different indicators associated to monitoring and assessing quality. The second part of this course aims at looking at the importance and the feasibility of large-scale assessments, large-scale learning assessments, to monitor learning and highlighting the need to have reliable data, valid data, and comparable data. These are the 3 main words. And we also deal with other topics, such as the use of this learning data to guide our education policies, but also better plan education for education. And we also deal with the 2030 agenda. What will be our results? Are we ready to give results, or to come up with results for the first indicator of SDG 4, 4.1.1, i.e. the minimum learning level for this agenda? To give you more information, or if you need more information, just go on the website, and in the chat, we will also give direct links to the information notes for this year. And next year, if I'm not mistaken, this course will take place during the first half of the year. As I told you, this webinar is organized in the framework of this course. Every Tuesday, we have webinars with expert guests dealing with different important topics related to this course. It's also an opportunity for us and for you to ask questions and to discuss with our experts. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us colleagues from the Dakar IIEP office, and they will be just conducting a webinar, which I have open to all, not only to the participants of the course, but also to the education community, i.e. local dialogue for an efficient use of learning data. But before I give them the floor, I would like to give the floor to Laura Pavio, my colleague, who is the coordinator of the regular supply of training from IIEP Paris. And she will just convey a welcome message from Béatrice Pons, who is in charge of the training, global training in IIEP Paris. But unfortunately, she couldn't be with us this morning. Laura, the floor is yours.
I will make my I introduce myself in English. As you know, my name is Laura, and I am coordinating the regular training offer in the Paris office. And this is to let you all know that we are launching the Global Campus and also the Foundations of Education Sector Planning Program is open at this point in time. So if you want to gain knowledge, and if you wish to develop the necessary skills to become an effective educational planner, this program on Foundations of Education Sector Planning is the right place to go. Why? Well, basically because through this program, you'll be able to build on capacity, not just knowledge, and also become the most capable planner, educational planner you can be, and in that way have a real impact on the capacity and the performance of your work unit and your own organization. Now, the good news is that applications are now open. This program is running from October 2024 to July 2025. It's nearly 9 months, and it is offered in both languages, English and French. So it is important to know that it's specifically designed for anyone who work at as staff members at the Ministries of Education or other governmental bodies. Also, NGOs and development partner staff are welcome to join us, including consultants, regional or local level officials working in the field of educational planning are also very welcome to join. The program is organized into 4 courses, and each course takes 8 weeks. On course 1, the idea is to explore the nature and the development of educational planning as a field and to identify key educational policies today. That course is followed by educational data and indicators, where the aim is to provide critical skills and knowledge related to the construction and also the interpretation of data and indicators that are used in the processes of educational planning. The third course is based on education sector analysis, which looks into the methodologies and necessary tools that are used to assess the context of an education system. And finally, the last course was designed to prepare an education plan so that participants can propose concrete education sector plan objectives that will set a path for reform and also for education transformation. Now, the deadline for application is end of June, and the registration link is available on the IIEP website. I think Yongshu is including the link so that you can click the apply button and complete the form online. And also, we're happy to say that the program fee has been reduced by 60%, thanks to the support from our partners. So the total cost has been reduced, and you will find all the information on the website. Successful completion of the program will lead to an IIEP diploma on Foundations of Education Sector Planning and Management. And if you have any questions or if you need any further information, do not hesitate to contact us. We have via email or the website. We look forward to hearing from you all. So thank you very much. And over to you, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura, for those detailed information about our core program, core training program. Very important and very relevant. And you will have all the information on the website, or you can also contact us. Merci beaucoup, Laura, for
Thank you very much, Laura, for your contribution regarding this global offer, global supply. And let's get back to our webinar, which will take which should take 90 minutes. All in all, we are 205 participants right now. So welcome to all of you. This webinar concerns a local dialogue for the efficient use of the learning results, we have decided to divide it into 3 parts. The first part concerns the deep root causes of the underuse of these that type of data, the fact that these data are not used sufficiently. It might not be the case, but this is what we often see. These data are not necessarily used. And we will just analyze these practices in 6 countries through the support country regarding the quality of education in sub-Saharan Africa. It's a major program, important program, which is coordinated through our office in Dakar. And then we will be presenting, in the second part, we will be presenting a local initiative, which is a very innovative one in Niger, Shawara Karatu, if I do not mispronounce it, meanings dialogue and consultation on education, which shows another way of using these data locally. And finally, we will have a question and answer sessions. I know there will be plenty of questions, but don't worry, we'll try to answer your questions. And if it is not possible, then we'll try to answer in writing in the next 48 hours. There will be a short presentation from regarding our 3 colleagues, whom you can see on the screen, who is Patrick Nkengne, who will start the presentation, the first part of the presentation of this webinar. And he will be followed by Emilie Martin, who also works on the same program, and then Moussa Hamani, who is with us and to support his colleagues, and also because he is involved in this support program. So thank you very much to all of you for being with us today. I can only encourage you to really benefit from this webinar, to improve your knowledge and your skills in this very special field regarding the quality of education. And don't hesitate, if you have questions, put them in the chat box and we'll try to answer your questions. And for the participants of the program, I invite you to use Google Doc, and I take this opportunity to say hello to all of you. Patrick, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Stephanie. Dear participants, welcome to this webinar. It is a pleasure for us to share with you the results of the program we've been conducting. As Stephanie says, my name is Patrick Nkengne. I'm in charge of this program regarding the quality of education, and I'm based in the IIEP-UNESCO Dakar office in Senegal. So for today, we will have a presentation focusing on the use of data, particularly at the local level. How can these data lead to taking ownership of this data to improve students' learning? So we have a presentation focusing on 3 points. First of all, let me just say a word on this program regarding the quality of education and support to the quality of education, and we will just look at one aspect of the results. We will also have 2 presentations. The first one, the obstacles and the barriers in using data, and the second one, an approach to try and overcome this problem regarding the data use, or how to use data. Regarding the program itself, this program, Education Quality Management Program, was born during the learning crisis and the fact that the learning is very poor. And we have noted that countries for more than 20 years have implemented reforms, sometimes highly developed reforms to improve the quality of education, to supply all students with quality education. But unfortunately, this often did not give the expected results, be it with a PASEC assessments or other assessments. And it shows that most of the students do not really have all the fundamental, have not really acquired all the fundamental knowledge. And these assessments with the results have allowed us to conduct analysis to see what are the factors influencing students' learning, and these factors were used to develop reforms. And for instance, when we identified that the level of education of teachers has an impact on teaching, that resources have a positive impact, that the learning time if it is more important or if it is not too reduced because of the lack of motivation of the teachers or other reasons will be an important element. So we can ask ourselves the question, how can the different players manage these different factors? How can they use these important elements and how can they manage these important elements? This is what was the foundation for this the study we have conducted, and we have the student. We offer all the possible efforts in the classrooms to the students in the schools, but nevertheless, the decisions are also taken at the decentralized as well as the central level of the ministry. So the major question which remains to be tackled is to what extent do all these decisions and the actions taken by all the players at these different levels, to what extent are they relevant? Is it what we need? Are they coordinated? In other words, are these actions which are complete action and not actions which mutually neutralize each other? And to what extent does that lead us to a quality education? It is just to answer all these questions that this education quality management program was created. And the idea is really to delve into the education system and look at what we call the black box and get as close as possible to the players, be it at the level of the school, either at the central level or the decentralized level, to analyze what the actors and the stakeholders do, so to have a different view of things and see to what extent we can improve the efficiency and effectiveness of these actions. So we carry out observations. We also did discuss with the different players, and we analyze what is expected from the different players. And you can see that this is a program which tries to understand what the different players do, tries to overcome the barriers to the efficiency of the actions, the final aim being to make the stakeholders more efficient. In other words, it's an efficient transformation of their professional practice. This program was conducted in 8 countries, and as I'm talking to you, the analysis was done in a very exhaustive way in 6 countries, and the results implemented are available on the website of the program. You have these websites in French and in English, and my colleagues will help me by sharing the links in the chat box. But when you have to see that we will focus on one main result, which was highlighted in this program, which is the use of assessment data, the barriers, and the levers to improve education. So this question regarding the data used is something we hear a lot about, because we see that from the very moment that countries committed themselves to offer a high quality education, this led to many different assessments in the education system. We see all types of assessment, be they international, national, or even local assessments, and there are more and more of them. And to give you an idea, over this 30 weeks of the school year in Burundi, 8 weeks were times used by the system for assessments regarding the learning of the students. And by doing the same analysis in Senegal, we noted that between 2019 and 2020, 5 assessments were conducted in the education system in a period of 2 years. So we see that there is a lot of data derived from assessments, but we always wonder about the use made of such a data to improve learning. Do we see anything? Do we feel anything? Do we realize that the education systems draw something positive from this assessment and try to improve students' learning? This is a question which was raised during the diagnosis phase in the 6 countries, and we were able to identify a certain number of deep root causes which stopped the players from using this data to improve learning. Next slide. So to deal with these actions, I will just give one element of precision. When you talk about using data, the idea is to improve learning, because we know that data is being used. If we look at one of the IIEP publications in 2022 and 2023, we see that there are about 19 analysis and education sector analysis and plans based on data. But what we want to talk about here are just data which concern the local level, so this is below the central level, but also data which are designed or thought to improve the learning of students and offer remedial courses. Why? Well, because the majority of action plans in the different districts, the regional plans or the local plans, are not based on evidence-based data. So when we analyze the local action plans in these countries, we realized that they were not supported by a strong analysis based on data, locally collected data. We also see that the existing data, i.e. assessment data, may just guided the actions of the inspectors. For instance, they may use this data to identify priorities in the field of education, but unfortunately, this is not the case. We have also noted that in some cases, the situation, i.e. the fact that the data are not used, explain why for certain district offices, it is not possible to identify the schools having the worst problems and more difficulties. So we see that the information exists, it will continue to exist, but on the other hand, we see that unfortunately the data are not used, or at least there are barriers, let's say, to using the data. And we've been able to highlight a certain number of reasons which explain this the situation. And the first one is this general trend to just report and limit oneself to reporting. In the education systems, there is a trend to just look at the data as one way of showing the hierarchy that an activity that was planned has been carried out. For instance, they will send notes and say, we have made an assessment and here are the scores. The other element which shows that people tend to simply report is that at the level of the district offices, at the decentralized level, there is a certain tendency to look at this reporting, data reporting, as a workload, as a time-consuming task. Why? Well, because the data is sent, but there is never any feedback. In other words, it's just as if you were working for something that will be useless. So they cannot even think that there's such information that is sent. We could analyze them at our level, at our own level, to improve our practices and our actions. But all this is also encouraged by the governance model existing in the countries which have been analyzed. And I would like to remind you that most of them are French-speaking African countries where there is a very really a top-down tradition. That is to say, it's a top-down model, and at the local level, where they expect instructions from the central level to take actions, and when they do not receive any instruction, they simply don't do anything. The second type of reasons, which you have on the next slide, is the lack of strategic vision for the use of data at the local level. In other words, when we look at all the different stakeholders in the education chain, there is not a single one who has the responsibility to analyze such data and go back to the schools, the inspections, and the districts, and send them back the information or the necessary information to encourage them to take actions. So this is due to the lack of incentive to integrate data into the decision-making processes. Decisions are made without referring to the data, or they expect instructions from the central level. But we also see that investments regarding the use of data, meaning using the data, are not there. In other words, we don't have locally the tools or the resources such as computers to manage such information. But also, we do not invest to empower them and to strengthen and build their capacities to help them manage these data, analyze the data, and take from this such data useful information from such data. And in other words, we have not seen in education systems areas or collaborative platforms where we can discuss the assessment data to understand what are the real problems, the real issues, and then take decisions to improve the situation. So the third type of reason is the one related to the lack of trust regarding assessment data. We have seen in the system that there are several reasons which lead the local players not to in a situation where they do not want to use the data. It's a problem of identifying oneself with the data. When, for instance, you carry out national or international assessments in a country, you have this requirement. You have a standardized approach. In other words, it will be the same tests and that will be used for all the students, for all the targeted students. But when you exchange with the players at the school level, some will tell you that in reality, we have that these tests actually were they did not take into account the progress made during the year, because each school has its own progress pace. Sometimes some schools start with the beginning of the curriculum, others with other parts of the curriculum. And when you take the test, it is not sure that all schools have covered all the curriculum. So they say that if our schools do not have good scores, it is because we have not reached this level in the program, in the curriculum, which makes it a bit difficult to use the data to take local actions. In other cases, it's mainly the people are afraid that they will be sanctioned, and that this leads them to falsify the data. Either because they're afraid of sanctions, or in some situations, if such data allowed to get the subsidies for the schools, for instance, based on the merit of the schools, or allowed to appoint to name the best school or the best teacher, then this may encourage the players or the different actors to falsify the data, and they're aware of that. So therefore, they're not really willing to use the data. Another point which is also important is that in many situations on the field, the assessment data are not stored in a format that can be used. Most of the time, it's on a piece of paper, as you can see on the screen, and the inspectors and the headmasters may have also handwritten some notes. And we know that when you have handwritten documents, you can make mistakes. You know, for instance, on the screen, if you look at the next slide, you have an image, and you see that when you do some handwriting, look at the first circle in red, we have a total number of boys and a total number of girls. And when you add up these figures, 4 and 15, the person wanted to write 19, but she wrote 29. She was distracted. But unfortunately, this is the figure which will be used for subsequent analysis, if they ever are to be analysis. So this has a lot of consequences regarding the use of this such data and the errors made. On this page, we have identified 3 mistakes. So imagine if you have several pages. And finally, one last reason explaining why the data stored are not used, as you can see on the next slide. These are, I started talking about data which are not stored in an appropriate way, but also the fact that we do not have tools or elements to appropriately store the data. It has a consequence. When you handwrite, you tend to, synthesize the information. So by doing so, you lose some information. If you look at the assessments, you see that for each student, we have the scores for each student. But when you report information through synthesis or summaries, for instance, the schools, rather than sending the scores for each student to hierarchy, the hierarchy will send the scores for the different levels of education. For instance, if in a school you have 2 classes for this 3rd level, the school will send only one note summarizing the results of the 2 classes together. And by doing that, we lose some information because it is difficult to know what is the situation of each of the classes and whether the classes are at the same level or whether they need different attentions. And the higher we go, the more summaries we have, and we lose more information. So the lack of IT tools to enter such information leads to a loss of information and therefore less possibilities to draw lessons from the available data. Below here, we have the problem of, if you look at the image to the right, the storage of paper. And we see that this type of information cannot be stored for a long time. And probably in a year or 2 years from now, we will not be able to know what is the situation of the school, and we will not be able to follow the progress made by the school because we might have lost the paper, which you can see on the floor. So these are all the reasons explaining why, for the time being, the data are not used. And before we start the discussion regarding the presentation and how can we do what we can do to improve the situation, we wanted to have your opinion through 2 questions. The first one being the following: amongst the barriers in using data at the local level, which I have just talked about, which one impact your education system? You may just check one or more boxes. You have 4 reasons there. And in the same vein, we would like to know from your own view, in your context, are you aware of other barriers in using data at the local level which have not been addressed in my presentation? If so, please specify which one. And these questions, we try to get your opinion through a poll, quick poll. It will be up to Stephanie or to Amaranta to just display the poll. Thank you, Amaranta. Yes, thank you very much, Patrick. You have it on the screen. You have the poll, and just use your mouse on the answers. And you can also see the 2 languages. You have them in French. It's in French and in English. So read the questions on the screen first. We leave it on the screen, which gives you time to answer the question. And also one element of precision, you can give an answer for your education system if you work on a very specific education system, but if you work for an NGO or an international organization, you can also give an answer for your region of intervention. Thank you, Emilie. And I would like to say that this poll is anonymous. No worries. Take your time to answer the poll. We'll give you another minute. So here are the questions. You also have quite a lot of questions in the chat box, but that will be for the next session after the questions and answers session. So the poll is in both languages, in French and in English.
In addition, on the screen, you can see the questions. There was some question about the fact that the pool is in French. No, the first part is in French, but then you have the translation into English afterward. You can use your mouse to see. OK. On va prendre, je vois qu'il y a déjà pas mal de réponses.
I can see we have quite a lot of answers.
Voilà.
Okay.
Encore une petite minute et après,
Give
on
you just
regroupera
a
les réponses
short minute,
et on
and then we'll
ira
look at the
rapidement
answers,
sur les
and we will make comments after Emilie's presentation, if you're okay with that, dear colleagues.
D'accord.
Okay.
Amaranta, veux-tu nous partager les réponses?
Amaranta, can you share with us the answers? Yes, of course. Normally, you should be able to see the answers on the screen. Up to you to make comments on the answers we see for the first and the second question.
D'accord. Sur la première question,
Okay, for the first question, I think that the majority of the participants have said that there was a lack of strategic vision for the use of data at the local level. I think this is quite relevant. Just reporting up mistrust regarding these assessment data and the problem with storage of data. Then for the barriers in using data, normally they specify, but I don't see it on the screen. Maybe you can see that, Amaranta. Yes, I see it. So we have an answer saying that no elements regarding this specialty. Maybe you can share it with us. For me, in the meantime, I'll give the floor to Emilie for the rest of the presentation. No problem. Thank you. Emilie will now have the floor. Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you. So in this part, following Patrick's presentation, in the second part of the presentation, the idea is to talk about the Shawara Karatu initiative, which is an initiative which was developed and experienced and piloted in Niger in the case of the program managing the quality of education as an answer to all these problems which Patrick mentioned regarding the use of data at the local level. The idea was to develop with the Nigerian education system an approach to improve the use of data at the local level with a specific objective, which is to improve learning. What is this Karatu initiative? Karatu is a term in the Hausa language, which is one of the languages spoken in Niger, meaning dialogue and consultation on education. As the name indicates, this Shawara Karatu initiative is thought as a forum for dialogue and consultation organized in a district, a commune, or an inspection area. The aim being to allow the different players of the commune, the district, of the inspection area to meet the challenges, the learning challenges at their level. At the local level, the idea being that this forum for dialogue should be fueled by the data used. So this strategy is a three-pronged strategy. The first one being to take stock of the existing data at the level of the district. So the people in charge of the districts gather all the data available regarding education. They examine them, they analyze them to make a comprehensive analysis and develop a diagnosis on the quality of education in the district. So the first step consists in developing a diagnosis regarding the situation of education in the district and an analysis focusing on the level of learning in the district for the students. Once the data have been compiled and analyzed by the people in charge of the district, the they organize a dialogue forum and a consultation forum looking at the data and sharing this the analysis with all the players and the stakeholders interested by education in the district. So the idea is to bring together a variety of stakeholders involved in the field of education. This may take into account the town halls, the inspectors, people representing the headmaster of the school, representing teachers, the civil society, as well as the chiefs of the villages and locally elected people. So they bring all these people together in a forum to talk about the situation of education and the learning level of the students. And this forum allows all these people to discuss the analysis openly and to draw the necessary conclusions, the aim being to develop collectively an action plan to improve learning in the district. So it really is a forum which a final aim is to, as I said, the objective of the forum is to get out of this discussion or to leave the discussion with a concrete action plan to improve learning in the area. And the third step consists in implementing this action plan. And there is a coordination committee made up of 2 or 3 people to monitor the implementation of this action plan in the district, and also to specifically indicate what are the roles and the specific characteristics of the stakeholders in the district to implement this action plan. So what are the strong points or the values on which this initiative is based? The general idea, and that was to just react to what we observed in Niger, for instance, regarding the use of data. The idea was, as I said, to give back some decision-making power and power of to take actions to the people in the district to deal with the education problems they are confronted with at their own level, and to also use the data to which they can use as a basis for their local decisions and develop contextualized interventions and actions based on their needs and tailored to their needs. So the Shawara Karatu initiative was developed to allow the actors, the stakeholders in the district to take ownership of the education data in the district, and also to allow them to make sure that these local data are really used rather than just go through the district. They should remain at the level of the district and meet the needs of the district, even if they refer them to the higher levels and the central level, but yet they want to make sure that they remain at the local level too, in a format that it can be used to meet the needs of the district. The idea also being to make sure that the data be used to develop an action plan focused on the improving learning at the local level. And also the idea is to make sure that this forum for dialogue and consultation be able to allow decision making and actions at the local level without having to wait for guidelines from the central level.
All this was developed in accordance with the PDIA approach, which is the iterative adaptation approach. The initiative follows a cyclic process with discussion forums and coordination that are planned at regular intervals during the school year. In fact, each semester, and these forums are an opportunity to take stock of the progress accomplished and also take stock of the implementation of the action plan that's been defined, and also reflect on the learnings that have been gained during the implementation. And On the basis of the feedback, the stakeholders basically fine-tune their action plan, define new priorities, and also assign new objectives for the next cycles, for the next forums. So Shirakwa 2 is actually thought of in this process of continuous improvement where the data is constantly analyzed to adopt the action plan with a view to improving learning outcomes. Now, just to give you an idea of the situation before and after the organization. So, within the framework of the program, we worked with two districts, two towns in Niger. So we tried this out two times. Two experiments were carried out, and after this dialogue forums were organized, we observed that very quickly we have moved to an approach that aims at using data to basically provide feedback to the hierarchy rather than taking local decisions based on the data. So before the organization of Sharakaratu, when we carried out the diagnosis in this district, we observed, as Patrick said, that the districts tended to transmit reports, general data to the hierarchy with a loss of information in the data collected because very less data stayed at the local level, and most of the aggregated data was sent to the central level. And we also observed that the data was actually transmitted in a format that could not be exploited, that could not be used. And it's only the synthesis in handwritten form that was usable. But after Ishvara Karatu, we wanted to improve the process of data collection to ensure that the data available at the district level are reliable, are of high quality, and can be analyzed and exploited immediately, readily, in a direct and simple way. So there was all this work on data collection forms so that they're better adapted to the needs at the level of the district. And there was also a lot of work done on improving the storage format so that the data is stored in a harmonized way. Now, this also allowed, so we moved from a situation where we had paper data that cannot be used to a situation where we had data that was high quality, reliable, and in an easily analyzable format. Before the organization of Shawara Karatu, we observed that the districts with which we worked were not capable of identifying the schools that are struggling in the region. Now, when we did this data analysis with them, the districts were then capable of identifying the schools that were struggling and that needed priority actions, remedial actions. Now, the organization of the Dialogue Forum has also enabled the collective discussion of the root causes behind the reason. So Shawara Karatu really allows this open collective discussion so that everyone can take ownership of the results and the stakes and find common solutions to these problems. Now, before the organization of Shawara Karatu, we saw that there was no possibility, no forum or dialogue platform on the situation of education within the districts. So the initiative helps us regularly organize this dialogue forum so that everyone can participate and everyone can act at their level. We also observed that the towns developed action plans communal action plans that they had to transmit to the hierarchy. And these action plans were not basically founded on compelling data, but after the organization of this initiative, we work with the districts so that action plans can be developed on compelling data, and they are collective, they develop with all the stakeholders of the district, and the action plans that are developed are rarely implemented because no one had the responsibility to follow up on these action plans. But with Shawara Karatu, we really realized the importance of appointing a coordination committee in charge of following up on these action plans. So of the developed action plans. So all this to say that it's also a solution that strengthens uh, district management practices because the entire process of Shawara Karatu does capacity building in the field of diagnosis and defining an action plan for the district. It does the capacity building in the field of follow-up and monitoring, as well as carrying out the evaluation of the action plan that is implemented. So there is this idea to basically do capacity building at the district level and strengthen their leadership skills at the district. So just something on the various challenges that we've identified while we were implementing this initiative. So we have challenges before the dialogue forum, during the dialogue forum, and after the dialogue forum. So before the organization of the forum, the main challenge was that the district officers say that they have all the necessary data to organize a dialogue forum, but after a closer review, we realized that they were basically handling the data, but were not in a usable format because they were in paper format, because they were not disaggregated, and for various reasons that Patrick mentioned. So before organizing this dialogue forum, there was a real there was a lot of done work to review the modalities of data transmission and storage to improve the quality and reliability of data. So this was extremely important. Now, in order to make sure that the modalities of transmission and storage are more reliable, and it's basically part of the routine work of the district. So this was the first challenge. Now, during the forum, we also realized that we had to appoint a person to basically facilitate discussions within the dialogue forum, and the qualities of the facilitator were decisive because we were dealing with a diversity of participant backgrounds with conflicting viewpoints. So it was really important for the person to have very strong facilitation skills so that this dialogue can actually be conducted in mutual respect and focus all the discussions on defining an action plan to improve learning. And we realized that if we do not have this facilitator with strong facilitation skills, the discussions would actually go haywire, and there were certain actors or stakeholders who would impose their viewpoint. They would monopolize the talking time. So we really needed a horizontal approach to reach consensus, that is to say, develop an action plan for the district. One of the difficulties was also the following. We realized that defining an action plan is something that the districts were not used to doing, and it was very difficult for them to define tangible and concrete actions that can improve learning outcomes without waiting for something from the central level. So the idea was to basically come out with concrete actions that can be implemented in the 3 to 4 months and that can be implemented by the stakeholders of the district, and the district did not need not wait for a decision to be taken at the central level, and they have some kind of power on some kind of control in the situation. And there was also a problem in identifying sources of funding to carry out the identified action plan. So you really needed to work on all these aspects. And one of the difficulties we encountered after the organization of the Dialogue Forum is that we needed to appoint a restricted coordination committee to ensure the close monitoring of the action plan that was defined, and uh, with the risk of nothing happening between two dialogue forums. So if there is no coordination committee that is implementing, that is closely monitoring the action plan, then the implementation would be jeopardized. Now, just to conclude, I've got a few testimonials from beneficiaries. So these are people who participated in the Shawara Kawatu. We've got testimonial from a primary education inspector from the Ndunga district, and who says that with the Shawara Karatu days, we've identified all the schools and classes that are struggling, especially in basic education. Sharing with the community is important so that they know what's going on in each school. Once the school results have been shared, everyone can act. There's an other testimonial from the Director General of Education Quality from the Ministry of National Education in Niger, who says that it's a convincing approach. Normally, we only analyze everything that is bad and we conclude that things are not working, but solutions to problems are everywhere. You need to seek out the good practices, and every stakeholder has a role to play. It's a rallying approach that included locally elected leaders, and everyone comes together around their shared interest with solutions so that within the reach, IEP does not come and impose solutions on us. My intention is to scale this nationwide. So this is the end of my presentation, and we're going to now collect your views. We're going to basically ask you another set of questions. We've got the first one is, in your education system, do you have local level dialogue forums focused on student learning assessment results? Yes or no? The second question is, would the approach supported by Shwara Kawotu initiative be suitable for your education system? Yes or no? And the third question, and the last one, is, in your opinion, what else could be done to enhance the relevance and effectiveness of this initiative? So, Amaranta, please start the poll. Thank you. Thank you, Emilie. So normally you should be able to see the poll on your screen. You have both languages, you've got the French and then the English. And if you cannot see it, please put your mouse on the question, and that way you will be able to see both languages. So we're just going to leave you a few minutes so that people can answer the questions. Thank you, Amaranta. So we're going to give you a few minutes so that you can answer Emilie's questions. Meanwhile, I'd like to thank you. You were very reactive on the chat. I really hope Patrick and Moussa were following all this. Everyone appreciated your presentation and this really wonderful initiative to better use the data by local stakeholders. I've actually collected a few questions from the participants of this course. I'll share them with you later, Emilie. But let's just leave some time for the participants to answer these questions. How many questions, how many people have responded, Amarantha? For the moment, 32 have answered. Great. Let's just give them another minute. And then if we can actually share the answers. I don't know, did we share the results of the first poll? The first, yes, we did. Everyone could see the answers, and let's just give them a few more minutes. Only about 52 people have answered. So let's leave them a few more moments. So all information linked to this program to support the quality of education, the reports and everything is available on the IIEP Dakar website. I think one of the colleagues has shared the link in the chat. Now, so if you want to actually look at these reports, please do so. They're very well structured. I think Patrick's just shared the links. So it's very comprehensive. So how long has this program been on for? I think it was in 2018. It was started in 2018, so it's been about 6 years. It's the website is great, Patrick. It's got a wealth of information. Let's take a look at the results now, Amarantha. Thank you, Stephanie. So you can see the results, the question 3 on the chat, because there is so many responses because it's an open question, but let's just see the first 2 on the screen. So the first question, does your educational system have local level dialogue forums focused on student learning assessment results? So we've got 54 out of 86 who say no. Majority of them say no. Or maybe they think it doesn't exist. Right. The second question, would the approach supported by the Shawara Karato initiative be suitable for your educational system? Majority of them, that is to say 90%, say yes. Patrick, Emilie, Moussa, would you like to comment on the results? Now, let's just start the discussion. But what is interesting is the people who said yes for the first question. Does your education system have local level dialogues forums focused on the student learning assessment results? We would like to listen to the people who said yes and basically find out what these discussion forums are. How do they work? So if someone has said yes, we would really like to, listen to you to basically compare the approaches to see in which region, what type of country. So I think we can start the discussions because the presentation is done.
Oui. Stéphanie, je peux
Stephanie,
intervenir en
may I
lien
just
avec
say
ces
something
résultats?
with
Oui.
respect to the results?
OK. Oui, en fait, on voit que
Right.
quand on
we can see that when we ask the question, does this approach Awarakra to is it appropriate for your education system? We have 90% who say yes. And I think that actually answers a question that was asked in the chat. That is, how does this initiative can be replicated in other uh, communes of Niger or other countries. Now, in terms of approach, let me say that this is something that can be implemented, whether it's in Niger, to scale it up on the national level, because this was something that we were thinking in Niger when the activities came to an end. The ministry was thinking about scaling up this approach. It really worked well in two communes, in two districts, and as it was successful, the ministry was actually trying to see how can this be integrated into the action plan of the ministry for a scale up. Now, for the pilot phase that showed these results, this pilot phase was funded by the AFD, the French Development Agency. And at the end of the experiments, the ministry had to think of the funding. So in terms of replicability or leveraging on this initiative for other districts in other countries, you can see that it's the three-step approach that's used. First of all, you have to take stock of all the available data, qualitative data, because this is data with a wealth of information. After analyzing this data, you need to identify the problems and the local context, because this could be different from one locality to the other. And on the basis of root causes, identified by the stakeholders, you need to come out with concrete actions. And while taking into account local partnerships that are available and the funds at the local level, but also what can be done at the locality. So it's this approach that needs to be capitalized for other activities in other countries.
Merci beaucoup, Moussa.
Thank you, Moussa.
Peut-être je vais commencer avec des questions.
Perhaps let me start off with the questions.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Il y a eu un moment de commentaires.
There was a
Il faut
comment.
citer que c'est une très très belle initiative
It says it's a great initiative in terms of using data. I think everyone agrees on this. The approach is extremely interesting.
Et de voir comment ça s'est passé au
And
Niger au niveau local. Et je pense que
I
ça
think
nous a rappelé pas mal de souvenirs aussi.
it really has
acteurs de
brought
l'éducation,
back a flood of
sur ce
memories
sujet-là. Alors sinon,
in the field of
je vais commencer
education. Now,
par des
I
questions
will start
de nos
off with
participants.
questions from our participants.
Questions via Google Doc. Notamment Bonaventure du Burkina.
Bonaventure from Burkina Faso, who is congratulating you for the presentation and was asking you, are there capacity building initiatives for stakeholders who were carrying out the activity? I think this is a question that keeps coming back when we talked about this program within the IIEP as well. What type of capacity building was done? And I had a question on the initiative in Niger. How much time did it take to basically carry out this activity in both the districts? And there was also a second question on the funding sources. Did you provide any funding support to the districts to organize, for dialogue forum, or are there other internal sources of funding as well for the activities? And Bonaventure is saying that this dialogue forum is there is a similar dialogue forum that exists in Burkina Faso.
Avec l'appui de Jaïd.
So,
Voilà. Je vous laisse la parole.
so I'm going to give you the floor. So there's someone who said that there was a similar approach in South Africa as well. Right, maybe I can give you some contextual information. Now, in terms of capacity building, the program has been designed in a way to support. In fact, the work is done by a national team appointed by the Ministry of Education. So it's at this level that the thinking is carried out, and capacity building is done by learning by doing. That means we have moments of discussion and with a team on stakes on the questions that need to be analyzed, and with them we agree on how we're going to what's going to be our take on it and how we're going to do it together. So we have this alliance between the theory and practice, guided by the action when the program is rolled out. So this is what we're trying to promote, because we've seen really good advantages when we look at theoretical aspects. You see, we wonder what we're going to do in the field, because when we're in the field, the sensation is completely different, because it's something which is not, gelling with theory. So again, we really have to blend theory and practice. Now, this is the first case. Now, with regard to this, the time, you need to know that the program was created in 2018. It was in a trial phase. So this was basically an experiment. We did not know what the results were, and we were just, going on. So it took some time to basically do this work of Shawara Kawara to that has developed this initiative. You need to carry out a diagnosis to show that this is a major stake in terms of managing quality. So it took about the diagnosis took about 9 months, and we realized that this is what we need to work on. Now, working on the initiative itself, that mm, it's designing took 4 months with the national teams, but we decided to first of all have an experiment, a pilot study of what was designed before validating the solution. So the idea is to see that it could work and see what conditions are needed to scale up. So we did two Shawara Karato initiatives in the same district. So there were totally 4 sessions that were organized, two in each district, and this took 1 year. So 4 years of design, 1 year of implementation, and then validation. So if we talk of replicability, I saw that certain stakeholders said that this can be replicated in the countries. And if we have to do this, given what we've already done, given that we have a lot of information and we've already kind of scanned the grounds, we can work with a country, and it would take less time. The development could take 2 months because we know exactly what we need to work on, and after the experiment, we can compress the time, and we would say 1 years to see what the system can build. I personally I really would recommend this experiment stage, because irrespective of the consistency on the paper, we always have new elements in practice which have not been factored in. And if this has not been factored in, this could really come to a grinding halt. Now, really like the question on funding, because this is really a challenge. Now, there are two parts to this. In case of Niger, how it was funded, it was funded by the program. Um, all the sessions were funded because we really needed to know how much it would cost. And now that we know, we can discuss it with the country. So there is a choice that was made, and the we really wanted the initiative to cost as less as possible, because if it was expensive, the countries would be it would be problematic for the countries to implement, because there are more than 100 districts in Niger. So I'm speaking under the control of Moussa. We managed to have $2,000. These are the direct costs. So this is the cost for the session to be implemented. We did not integrate the indirect costs, for instance, transportation charges, when for teachers, for inspectors, that also is part of their working time. So these are indirect costs. It could be about uh, $2,000 per Shwara Karatu. So this is what we did. So the country could commit to democratizing this approach, because they had funding from for partners for several projects. So they thought about scaling up that took into account all the funding for the PITF, and then they wanted national funding as well. So what is really important, and Emilie talked about it, is this trend to have very clear ideas
Et lorsque ces actions avaient une
to solve
implication
certain problems. And when there was when there was a financial cost to be borne, the actors were prepared. In fact, they did not know sometimes where to turn to, whether to the state, what were the mechanisms to have public funds to execute these actions. So sometimes it's not a question of lack of resources, but also the capacity to access these resources in time, in a timely fashion. So you can't just come and say that we have this activity and we need resources, and we had to start to identify a skills chart. We needed to basically strengthen the capacities of stakeholders at the local level. So whether it's in terms of analyzing capacity, budgeting capacity, infrastructure. So the information I can provide you. If you've got anything to add, my colleagues, please feel free. I think what you said was pretty comprehensive. I just want to come back to one point, which is capacity building. Now, in the program, it's about learning by doing, and it's also developing an initiative and trying it out at a small scale. And it's this experiment at small scale that will help us identify the skills that need to be worked on. So we do not have any kind of a priori on the skills to strengthen. It's only by doing we realized that there was no one in the district to manage data. So then we were talking to the districts and we were seeing who is the best person to basically do this data analysis, who would be in charge of data analysis, and this person and the skills of this person would be strengthened to do data analysis. So this is how we identify the skills. It's identified throughout the experiment. For instance, the infrastructure needed to provide the resources. All this is defined gradually as and when the experiment progresses. I'm going to add some examples in terms of capacity building. There was improvement in the information through the initiative. The actors realized that there were problems, and we really needed to improve the way information flows. Now, the data collection tools to send the data collection tools to receive, and then providing feedback to the actors. So this flow of information had been improved by the stakeholders themselves, and the initiative also improved the quality of data, because that also was a problem in Niger. We had data that was falsified for reasons Emilie explained. So all this again improved. You also developed action plans by stakeholders. So these are activities that the stakeholders are not used to doing. So again, meeting is not something they did, and identify concrete actions that can solve problems. Now, everything that was said, like other skills, were also improved. Thank you so much, Patrick, Emilie, and Moussa. You've actually answered many questions that were also asked in the chat. Lots of reactions here. There are other countries, other participants who also mentioned countries that had such dialogue forums. No, a lighter version of what happened. We've got only 8 minutes before we end the interesting webinar. There's so many questions. Now, there were many questions on how we can participate, how we can replicate. You've actually answered these questions, but I really encourage participants to go to the website and contact you later on. I had a question on other countries that participated in this support program. Are there any interesting results with respect to the 5 other countries with whom you worked? We've got only very few minutes, so just key results that you would like to share with us. And I was also wondering, the participants of these 6 countries, did they actually meet? Because in IIEP, we work at the regional or the global level. We really have a lot of expertise in this field, not just at the national level, but we also work with many countries, all countries. So I was just wondering, where was the cross-pollination amongst the 6 countries? Now I'm going to conclude the session after this, so thank you so much.
Stat.
Tu vas
Alors,
commencer?
oui.
Start.
Alors,
Right.
diagnostic, comme je l'avais annoncé,
As I
a été
said,
établi dans
the diagnosis
6
ended
pays.
in the 6 out of the 8 countries, and they showed very interesting elements. One of these uh, things that really marked was this idea that one of the first problems of the education system is the problem in implementing what is planned. So this was actually the same in all countries, even though the countries had different levels of education management. There's a constant problem, which is implementing what was planned. Consequently, they really do not take decisions, and they have problems in orienting future decisions, and they repeat the mistakes of the past. So this was a very, very common problem. Now, since everything was inside the system, we really need to understand the root causes, and there were 6 priority elements on which we needed to work in order to improve quality management. Now, currently, there are 4 uh, work streams that are being worked upon, and the first is the use of data. So it's Niger that was the field of experiment for this problem, for this theme. The second work stream that came out was all questions linked to pedagogical support. Currently, the systems count on supervision of teachers by inspectors in order to improve the quality. But when you basically ask questions to all actors in the chain, everyone is dissatisfied, and they say that the system is not efficient. Whether you ask this to the inspector, the teacher, the school principal, or even at the authorities at the central level. So this means that you really have to review how pedagogical support is provided. And Senegal worked on this. You will see that what was done in Senegal is very interesting. We basically saw how we could basically make everything dynamic and have the discussions between the supported and the supporter more public. And then there was the innovations in the system. Now, when there is a problem with an education system, the major trend is to turn to the international sphere to see what is done abroad and what solutions can be adopted. But at the same time, when you analyze education systems, you can see that there are stakeholders within the system who have already developed solutions to these problems and that are functional, that work in their context. So what you really need is to identify this and then think about how these solutions developed can be improved and uh, tweaked and adapted to players elsewhere. Now, we did this with Niger. The schools of Niamey and Tawa have developed an approach which has the capacity to solve problems such as absenteeism amongst teachers, uh, provide remedial support to students who are struggling. In the chat, I saw that they were talking of displaced students. Yes, there are schools that basically welcomed displaced students, and you had students who were attending classes of where the student's age was 16. So again, there's a problem in terms of managing these classes. So all this was worked on by the schools in Niamey and Tawa. Now, another problem that was discussed was basically bringing together research and education at the national level. We have many research institutes that are working on education, but the themes they analyze are not themes that are needed by the Ministry of Education. So we basically carried out some work in Togo to see how we can ask the ministries to express their research needs so that the work that is done is useful to the system. So these are the initiatives that were developed in other countries, in 4 countries. Then we also have 2 more. It's about reinforcing dialogue within the educational system. And the last one is improving planning and monitoring at the deconcentrated level.
Merci beaucoup,
Thank you.
Patrick.
Thank you,
Emilie,
Patrick.
Moussa,
Emily, Moussa, 30 seconds. 30
Patrick a
seconds.
tout dit, c'est bon.
I think Patrick has said everything. I have nothing to add. D- Did he talk about experience sharing? No, he didn't. Well, there you go. So we can conclude now. The program has worked directly with 8 countries, and there were another 8 countries that were supported with a view to supporting experience sharing. So at regular intervals, we organize regional workshops for experience sharing where countries that participated in the program and did not participate in the program can talk to each other. So this is something that we tried to do with time. So these were practice communities, so to speak. So this was our last uh, now there's going to be a experience sharing workshop that's going to be organized with the beneficiary country. Thank you so much, Patrick, Emily, and Moussa, for your participation in this webinar. It's really very interesting. And I was just wondering, it would really be nice to have a webinar on this program that's open to everyone, not just within the framework of this course, but also with external partners inviting the 8 countries. I think there's so many questions. I have participants who are a bit frustrated. I'm really sorry.
Non, mais ce qu'on peut dire à ces participants,
Now, what we can tell these participants is to basically leave the questions in the chat, and we will make an effort to reply to all these questions. It would be something better than nothing. And the PowerPoint presentation will be sent, and you'll also have our contact details, our email addresses. If you have any specific questions, please do contact us without a problem. We'd be thrilled to answer your questions. And this webinar has been registered in both languages, and we're going to actually send the link of the audio. So again, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the three for this presentation. It's really very interesting, and for your very valuable contribution in terms of answering the questions. May I also thank my whole team, all the people who were working. I want to Laura, Yongshu, Amaranta, Melina, Ludivine, Jimena, Beatrice, and all the other colleagues that I've forgotten. Perhaps I also would like to thank you all, dear participants. You've been very active. It's really important. We're all a community. It's really important to know what's happening in other countries, and I really would. I There's going to be a satisfaction questionnaire on this webinar, so I'm going to ask you to answer this. It's a very anonymous questionnaire. There's very few questions, so please answer these questions. It's important for us to improve, to continue this webinar, and see you soon, and perhaps next year for the next specialized course on the use of learning data to monitor SDG 4 in 2025. I'd also would like the same team to do another presentation next year. So again, they said, yes, that's good. So again, have a great day, great week, and thank you to our interpreters, and thank you, everybody.
merci,
See
merci
you
à toutes et à
all.
tous.
Bye-bye.
Merci à tous.
Merci beaucoup.
À